As of recently, Kevin Feige's pretty much been trying to gas up the Fantastic Four, as of recently kind of stating how they're supposed to be a big pillar in the MCU going forward, and kind of rumors, but I don't really want to like kind of set a highlight on that because it's another like it's not a confirmation, but it would make sense that they would try to work on the casting for the Fantastic Four. I would assume they would announce that via either a Comic-Con panel or a D23 type event like they did last year with showing off certain events, and just kind of going over the fact of how the Fantastic Four is a really important factor into the MCU going forward, and what I think could either make or break the future of the MCU. A lot of people like to say, MCU's dead or they've lost interest or it fell off and all that. I mean, I was never a part of like the notion that the MCU's dead or whatever. I'm still a big fan. I've been a fan of it, since I saw the first Avengers in 2012. And, I've had, concerns, some ups and downs with it, but overall, I am looking forward to the introduction of mutants, the X-Men, and, especially the Fantastic Four, and how getting the Fantastic Four right and everything surrounds them is one of the most important things that they need to take their time with and really, kind of invigorate in how to make them successful in the MCU going forward. Say for Kevin Feige is how, the Fantastic Four is the foundation for everything that came after in the comics. And there's certainly been versions of it that never, inhabiting the storytelling of the MCU. And that's something that is really exciting for us. And kind of how people will start to hear more about that soon. We plan on that being a big pillar in the MCU going forward, just the way they've been in the comics for 50 or 60 years. This kind of goes back to how the Fantastic Four isn't necessarily like a traditional crime fighting unit. They do a lot of exploring, with like the negative zone and, how certain like villains that they face, like Doctor Doom, and the really like family dynamic that's, really brought up in like in the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby era of the comics, as well as other future stories. And, them kind of starting like an actual family with, Sue and Reed and their two children being Valeria and Franklin Richards. But I think these are just some of the fundamental things about the Fantastic Four that the MCU has to prioritize and get right. And I think that'll make it most successful, because this movie can't be mid. Like the casting, the costumes, the storytelling, the script, it just can't be like one-dimensional and rushed like some of the other MCU movies have been, because since you don't have the main Avengers cast anymore, you kind of need like a new focus, which I would assume would be like mutants and like the entry of the Fantastic Four, as they bring on a lot of new elements and like either cosmic or dimensional aspects of Marvel comics that can be run into live action MCU. Embracing the comics is just one of the things that I hope the MCU does more often. I think specifically with the costumes, because I don't want some over-designed, line-infested, diluted color for the costumes. Like, you see the costume of Reed Richards in Doctor Strange. I'm not the biggest fan of this costume. It's like, it's the whole, line thing and like the colors and stuff. It's just like, just do simple. And, the DC's a really good example. They have some of the most basic, I guess, designs, very like comic accurate. Look at Aquaman's suit. It's like ripped straight from the comic, but it looks good because of the materials that they use. And it's all about just having talented costume designers that really embrace the comics. It's like, I think the 2005 Fantastic Four costumes are like good precedent, to like kind of go for. It doesn't exactly be like that, but I think that's probably the best ones we've seen so far, because I guess it's like the only one that we've seen outside of like that one night, was it 1990 movie that never really released. I mean, I guess it's comic accurate, but it doesn't look very good. But yeah, I don't want that. I don't want this, what they did in Doctor Strange. I want something different. I want something more simplistic, but looks really good. I don't want some like diluted color, like over designed crap that Marvel likes to do a lot. But I guess another thing about it is the casting. The casting is really important. That will also make or break the film. You really need a really good dynamic in the actors kind of bouncing off of one another well. Kind of having that, I guess, family aspect. That's really, what the Fantastic Four is really well known for. And like this rumor, like I said, I'm not gonna put too much highlight on it because it is a rumor, and I don't like, like a lot of these other YouTubers do. They kind of just gas up rumors, clickbait and all that, stating how they are kind of going to start doing casting, gearing up, like I guess this month, starting with like Sue Storm. I mean, it makes sense to do casting soon, if the movie plans on coming out early 2025 and lead to like Kang Dynasty, so that makes sense. And alongside the Fantastic Four, one of the main pillars or one of the main characters that potentially could be like the next Thanos, or like the next big bad, antagonist for the MCU, kind of like after Kang, whatever, after Secret Wars, is Doctor Doom. Because alongside the Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom has never really been well portrayed at all in live action. Like, there has never been a single live action adaptation of Doctor Doom that has done the character justice or gotten him right. You have the early 2000s Fantastic Four movies. He's literally just your stereotypical villain, some CEO, American businessman. This what I don't understand with these live action Fantastic Four movies, the both of them, this like weird fixation of having him have like a thing for Sue. It's so weird to me.
Victor, I
have 4 words. 4 little words that can change our lives forever.
See, now that's some bullshit.
Obviously the fact they mention Latveria, but he's never the dictator, and they always like having his powers originate the same way the Fantastic Four got their powers. He's not a sorcerer. You don't really see his intelligence all that much, I guess, outside of like him doing that one project in that travesty of a 2015 movie. His costumes, it's okay, but it's not, I guess, ideal. But in the MCU, this is the opportunity. This is your one and only chance to get someone like Doctor Doom right and really portray how much of a menacing threat and how intimidating he is. It's like you have the intelligence of like Reed Richards and Tony Stark. You have the sorcery, Sorcerer Supreme, I guess, mystic arts mastery like Doctor Strange. Iron Man, I guess, not Iron Man like armor, but his armor is like very advanced. It's like, his abilities really come from both mysticism and science and technology, and that's what really makes him a really good threat. Like, dude could probably, like, honestly, with the power-ups, could solo like the Avengers, especially this current lineup. He would dominate the Avengers, and he would make a really posing threat. And I think another thing that a lot of these adaptations get wrong is his motivations. He's not just some stereotypical villain that like, oh, I want to, destroy the world, or I want to, do whatever. Like, he wants to take over the world because he genuinely believes he is the only person capable of doing so. He believes that, that him not taking over, because he's seen, like, in the comics, he saw like a future of, the earth, in disarray, kind of like an apocalyptic future, but a future in which he was basically the ruler. It was very peaceful, it was very, stabilized, and he truly believes that, like, it is his mission to, what he did for Latveria, being its like kind of ruler, like he's that same treatment for Earth. Anyone who gets in his way, he'll take them down no matter what. And there's a lot of like depth to his character, with his origin, with his mother, like Mephisto and her being trapped in there like hell. A lot of where his like mysticism like came from originally, and his intelligence, being one of the smartest minds in the Marvel universe, up there with Reed Richards. That rivalry that him and Reed had over the years, along with the Fantastic Four. There's just a lot of stuff with Doctor Doom that they need to get right. Like, dude honestly needs his own like solo project, whether it's like a movie or a TV show, preferably a movie, because a lot of these Disney Plus shows don't have the same budget or care as the movies. And I think that's really important to set the foundation. And if he's not the main villain in the first movie, I'd be completely okay with that. I think they need to build him up, kind of like what they did for what they're doing with Kang and with Thanos. You could really build him up to be like a very menacing threat. Because in the comics, he's like the main villain he's the main villain in the 2015 Secret Wars, which I doubt they would adapt, having Doctor Doom being the main villain in the MCU Secret Wars, because he hasn't even been established yet. So, but yeah, hopefully that's another thing they can't get wrong. It'll make or break the MCU for me, but I'm sure they got it. They got some talented people over there, and can't wait to see in the future for that. I mean, as for the main villain for the first Fantastic Four movie, I would, obviously I wouldn't assume it would be Doctor Doom, because if they're trying to kind of avoid the mistakes of like the previous iterations, they kind of want to build up to something like that. So, and the fact that the Fantastic Four movie comes out right before the Kang Dynasty, it's like the first Marvel movie of 2025. I think it's slated for like February release, and then you would have Kang Dynasty in May. So I would assume that it would have to tie into that movie to some capacity. I would think that they would kind of be in an exploration, like they could have something to do with the quantum realm. Like, I'm assuming the quantum realm kind of serves as like the negative zone of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to a certain degree, because it's been stated that the Fantastic Four movie isn't an origin story. So I would assume that it was just about establishing the foundation of the team dynamic, what they're like, and then, you know, I have an adventure, whether, you know, in the quantum realm somehow, or it could be like kind of that one issue. I think it was Fantastic Four issue 19, which is actually the first appearance of Rama Tut or Kang the Conqueror, you know, in which they go back in time, and, you know, Nathaniel Richards, also known as Kang the Conqueror, is known as like Rama Tut, and they kind of interact with him there. You know, I guess tying into the whole multiversal, you know, time thing that's going on with Loki, and then Quantumania and whatever they're leading to with Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. But, you know, if there's a main villain or not, no, I'm not saying it would be Kang, but maybe you could do like a Nihilist if they were to just try to do Negative Zone, like if they don't do necessarily the quantum realm at all. But I guess depending on what their main focus is, because they're still writing the script for that. And yeah, but, you know, just having the Fantastic Four right is just really the first step in having a successful future for the MCU going forward. If you're not gonna have the main focus on the Avengers, like, you know, Tony and Steve specifically, you know, with like the Future Foundation, if they were to even go that far, that's like 10 years down the road, you know, with the introduction of like their children with like Valeria and Franklin, and I guess just like taking inspiration from like the Jonathan Hickman run, I think would be really cool. But, you know, just kind of having all these set in stone, really get people who are really passionate about it, because one of the mistakes with the other adaptations, these people, it's very clear and evident that the people who made those movies, you know, whether it's the 2015 one specifically, they've never read a single Fantastic Four comic book in their life. They don't understand the characters, and a lot of the characterization is just kind of caricatures of themselves. It's like, oh yeah, it reads the smart nerd guy, and like, oh, Doctor Doom's the bad guy. It's very surface level. It's a clear misunderstanding. So I'm hoping with this one, it's someone, a group of people, especially with the director who did WandaVision, someone that actually understands the heart and soul of the Fantastic Four, what makes them so special, and really help the general audience become connected to them as well, and become one of the main focuses in the MCU going forward.